All right, so now we're going to do the princess seam. In preparation, I've cut out my pattern pieces. I cut the pattern out with paper scissors, and I cut the shapes out. I pinned it on and cut the shapes out with my fabric scissors. I've also marked using the tracing wheel and the marking paper all the X's and the waist mark along here and on this one. So now I'm going to unpin it and remove my pins and remove my paper till I'm ready to sew. So the interesting thing about a princess seam is you're trying to make an inward curve fit an outward curve. In order to do that, we need to manipulate this into becoming a straight line. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something called stay stitching, and stay stitching is stitching that is just inside the seam line. Unlike basting stitches, it's actually permanent. So we're going to just sew along here, and because I want it just inside, I'm going to use the 4/8 line. So it's about just under 1/8 of an inch smaller than the actual seam line. So you do this on your regular stitch length. Ooh, that's not good sewing. Don't do that. Not my best sewing, because of course I'm being videoed. Okay, now some people when they do this, they like to also stay stitch this one, the outward curve piece, just so it stays in place as you sew it later. So it's not a bad idea to do that. So again, I'm going to do it on the 4/8 line, or mostly 4/8 line. And I'm going to take this off. So now, if you remember from our earlier samples, when we did the inward curve, we clipped it to make it more flexible. So that's what we're going to do along here, is we're going to clip it. So we've made this more flexible. All the way along this curve. That should be good. And now I'm going to line up all my X's on this piece with the X's on this piece. So I'm going to start at the top. So how I'm going to do this, I'm going to put a pin through the center of this X, and I'm going to pop it through on this side, through the center of the X on the other piece, and then pin it in place. And I'm just going to keep working along, doing that. Until all the X's are lined up. Ooh, that's not good. There we go. Another one. Riveting video. Just watching me pin stuff. Okay, one more X to line up. Really should learn how to do fast forward video. Nah, it would take too long. I can just pop this up on YouTube after this. Okay, so now that I've got all my X's lined up, and I can actually do my waistline seam. Apparently princess seams are hysterical to other classmates.
What was the website you said?
So now I'm going to manipulate this into place and pin it all the way along the seam. And you're going to use a lot of pins when you do this. Okay, so I've pinned this now all the way along. And when you go to sew this, you want the side where you did all the clips to be facing up because it's easier to manipulate it, because it's not going to sit flat and it's not going to behave in any way, shape, or form. So now I'm going to sew it on the 15 line. So as usual, actually I think I want to go this way. I do. I'm going to backstitch to begin. And this is one of those times where you're going to sew right. Oh, I sewed over that pin, Miss Bamford. Didn't even see that one. There we go. There it goes. You're going to sew right up to your pins and take them out. And you're going to follow that line, the 15 line, very carefully. You're going to want to do this very slowly. See, I'm trying to avoid this bubbling. Sometimes you have to lift the presser foot and manipulate the fabric again. Oh, so now I'm just going to finish the seam by sewing to the end. Back stitching. So now the seam is done, and when we look at it from this side before it's pressed, it's got this nice curve. So I've got a couple areas I'm going to have to get rid of the bubbles with, or the buckles. Ooh, that's nasty. I'll have to seam rip that part and fix it. It got all folded in there, so I'll just rip out that little part there and re-sew it, but the rest is ready to be pressed.